Hi, this is Mash Rundown. If you've been watching our movie reviews and haven't subscribed, why not? Subscribe and hit the like button down below.
Today we're going to be continuing on our Throwback Thursday with our review for Saw 4. Saw 4 is a 2007 horror film directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. It stars Tobin, Scott Patterson, Costas Mandylor, and Lyric Bent.
Essentially, the movie is just another Jigsaw movie.
Yep.
I think they found any excuse to continue the franchise. And this time they focus on Rigg, who was the SWAT team member in the earlier movies that allowed Eric to run off and break the law by beating up Jigsaw and, disappearing off into the night.
You can tell this is a sequel. A lot of the characters are coming back. We've got Eric in the trap. We've got, of course, Rigg's running all over the place. Jigsaw's there. We've got mention of Amanda. So, complete follow-on from the last movie.
I think this movie really fell into its old traps, though, because it once again used very trivial excuses to put people in traps and very much broke the whole "I'm doing this to teach you a lesson" ploy again.
Especially Eric and Art, they're put into a second trap, which completely breaks the message. Because if you get out of a trap, you've got your life kind of thing. And they got out of their traps, but they put into a second trap. Yeah.
It makes sense for me in terms of Eric, because in the stage they don't know about Amanda, so maybe Jigsaw was protecting Amanda. But it makes no sense with the lawyer. Like, why not let him go? Why not use someone else as your decoy? There were many cops and many people involved in this whole process. So I felt like Jigsaw really went way out with that. This movie takes place concurrently with what happens in the third movie. So at that point, they didn't know that Amanda was his accomplice.
Yeah.
But then in the movie, the cops are talking about Amanda, so I just didn't like that.
Overall, the movie tends to try and be smarter than it actually is.
I think the movies, all of them, tend to try and be smarter than they are. Or, like I said last time, maybe they just think the audience is really, really dumb.
Looking at the good in Saw 4, there's not much. The transitions were pretty cool. I'm not sure this horror movie really needs these cool transitions, but they are pretty well done. Also, some of the editing is very quick scenes, and I know some people complain about it because you don't get a good look at the traps or the goriness, but I also think it was used very strategically to help them cut down on costs for those scenes. So you didn't have to show the most realistic looking
Leg being pulled apart.
Yeah, because you can barely see it. So you know what's happening, and your mind can kind of play with it. And I think that's almost better than seeing a clearly fake leg being pulled off.
Yeah. I think it's really smart because it lets your imagination run wild.
Yes.
And it also allows them to work within the constraints of their budget, and it allows them to make a movie like this without going, totally crazy with money.
Yes. Then they can save some money for later on special effects, like Eric's head getting smashed. Because that we saw.
Yeah. I also liked the evolution of Jigsaw, especially in terms of the very first trap that he makes. The one with the knives, with the guy who caused the miscarriage of his girlfriend or wife, whatever. Because the trap wasn't perfect. It actually fell apart, yes. And the guy managed to attack Jigsaw. Of course, Jigsaw got out of that. But I like the idea that he had to toy with it and play with ideas, and that he made mistakes, because I think anyone who starts off with something like this would make mistakes in the beginning, even if you're a very well-known engineer.
The one bit of suspense that really worked for me in the movie was Agent Riggs comes into a motel room, and on the bed there's this chest with some hair sticking out and a picture of his wife on the top. And you know it's not really in Jigsaw's MO to just chop off somebody's head and throw it in a box. But you start to wonder until he opens that. Yeah, there's quite a bit of suspense there. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too. I really did think there would be a head in the box at that. And that was probably the only suspenseful twist thing that I enjoyed in the movie.
So let's look at the bad. Because the movie's running concurrently with the third movie, the timelines don't always make sense. It's a little convoluted. They've tried to take scenes from the future, the past, the future, and splice them together, and it becomes more fragmented than it needs to be. It's not a complicated story, and you don't need to try and make it smarter than it is.
Also, I don't think the people who wrote the script really understands how the human body works and trauma, because, like with the autopsy, it was like he was bleeding while they were cutting him open. Technically, I mean, there would be blood, but it wouldn't look like you're bleeding. And I didn't like the fact that his stomach contents were black. What on earth could he have eaten that caused his stomach contents to be black? And then just other general things like the arrow that shot through that woman went through her cheek and there was a squirt of blood and she was dead. I'm like, what artery or something did that arrow hit to cause that squirt? I don't know.
An instant death.
Yeah, an instant death. That was bizarre. And the other arrow one with the wife, despite me probably the most out of all of them, is she pulls out all these arrows. But the first thing you should do when you get impaled by something or shot with an arrow is not pull it out. Because as soon as you pull it out, that's when a lot of bleeding and stuff will occur, because before you pull it out, the arrow is actually keeping the blood and everything in place. So it's closing out the veins and stuff.
Yeah.
So never, ever, ever pull out an object that has impaled you. Leave it in there for the doctors to pull out. They could have easily come in and cut the arrows off between them and, try to save both of them. But just pulling it out was so stupid. And Riggs, why didn't you just walk out and call someone? I mean, he had free will the whole time. He wasn't locked in a specific room.
There was absolutely no reason he couldn't have stopped by a payphone at any time, or asked somebody, hey, could you just call the police and tell them to come to this place, or anything. Can I borrow your phone for 2 seconds? I just need to phone the cops.
And he's a cop. He should be upholding the law, following protocol, but he never does that. The end of the movie happens because he doesn't follow protocol.
Not just that, even he places somebody in a trap. Like, I understand trying to save people, but I don't understand killing someone to save people, because he is now directly responsible for that man's death.
I understand the guy was a really bad guy, but as a cop, his job is to prosecute him. He's not judge, jury, and executioner. I can't condone that at all.
No. Saw 4 also delves into a lot more backstory for Jigsaw, and I don't know why. We had pretty good motivation in the beginning, we had a good backstory for him, and now we're getting more, especially because Jigsaw's dead. So we're getting a lot more information on a character that we're not going to have future investment in, because he's not, well, as far as we know, he's not going to be in the future episodes.
I feel like, especially because the third movie gave a lot of backstory as it is, I didn't feel like he needed additional motivations for what he did. The frontal lobe, the car accident, everything else explained his motivations quite well. I don't know why they need to now go into, his son dying in the womb and all of that. It wasn't necessary. And it just made the movie feel like really long. I think I also really didn't like the fact that the characters were once again unlikable. I have no investment in any of the characters except maybe Jigsaw.
And even that's getting a bit tedious, because he's dead, so why do I want to invest in someone who I'm not going to see further?
So I feel like they could have gotten a character that we actually want to survive, because I didn't particularly like the cop. I never saw the lawyer really before, so there was zero investment in him.
I really disliked the FBI agent. He sucked.
And Riggs is like, okay, so he doesn't follow protocol all the time, so we should murder a whole bunch of other people to teach him a lesson. None of them were likable.
I would like to root for a good guy at one stage in this franchise. Like somebody in the traps, I'd like to root. Oh, I really hope they get out, not, oh well.
I think the only movie where I actually rooted for the good guys was the first movie. Because the doctor and the photographer were good guys. They had not done anything bad. And I felt like I wanted them to survive.
A little bit, yeah.
But after that, the rest of the characters from 2, 3, and 4, I couldn't care less. No investment.
And then it seems to be a thing with Saw at the end of the movie. You have to have a rehash of the whole movie, just to show how clever they are. They did it again. Still don't like it.
Like, I don't know why we need to rewatch everything. Are we too deaf to have put the things the connections together. I don't know. No, it's just like, I just watched the whole movie. Why are you re-showing me the whole movie again?
Overall, the movie was lackluster. It wasn't great. It was meh at best.
So I'll probably give it a 4.
And I'm going to give it a 4 as well.
And I think just in terms of who wants to watch it, I think it's going to be the same as all the other movies. People who generally enjoy horrors and thrillers, especially if they like the Saw franchise. I think if you haven't seen the first 3, this movie won't make much sense at all.
No.
So I think you do need to watch at least the 3rd one in order for this to make sense. If you've enjoyed this 4th movie, let us know in the comments down below why, because we just don't get it. Bye.
Later.